Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. I'm Michaela, doing another solo video. We're really nailing it right now. The one thing that we're not super nailing is that the concept of this video works better before the new year starts, but I wanted to talk about some of the new releases in the first quarter that I am looking forward to. Gretchen did a video like this back in December where she talked about all of the romance reads that she was anticipating. The difference between Gretchen and I is that list for her are the books that she is planning to read 100% and probably review for you. So every single time one of those books is meant to come out, you are most likely going to see a review from her. For me, this is more so books that I have seen or am looking at that I will most likely purchase, but the question of whether or not I'm going to review it for you, we'll see. Some of these I have plans to read and review, some of them less so. Some of them you might see again in other videos for specific reasons, and I'll talk about that as well. But in general, these are the books that I am looking forward to picking up within the next couple of months. You might note that there is a quite high number of Macmillan, specifically Tor.com, and Tor Nightfire books in this list. And that's because out of all of the publishers, I feel like Macmillan and those couple of three Tor specific folks are putting out the type of books and the diverse books that I would like to look at. So if you are noticing a theme, that's definitely purposeful. Because this is kind of late in coming out in that it's like the third, I don't know which week it is, fourth week of January? I think it's the 4th when this video is coming out. Some of these books have already come out and I have a couple of them here to show you. The first of which came out on January 9th. That is Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Shannon McGuire, which is the 9th book in the Wayward Children series. The very first Wayward Children's book, Every Heart a Doorway, was a book club book way back when, so you can go watch Baby Us talk about this in a book club format. But I have continued to pick up and read the books in this series. Have I read the previous 8? No, not all of them. And you're going to see this one come up again in a video next month, I believe, where I talk about a series that I have been buying every single book that comes out. Even if I haven't been reading over the last couple of years. But I have loved every single one of these that I have read. If you did not know, this series is portal fantasy, so if you think of like Narnia or Wizard of Oz, where people somehow find themselves in other worlds and they have come from our normal world. The first book talks about the school for girls, where they have come back from their adventures in other worlds and are having a hard time readjusting back to normal life. All of the Even books in the series are backstories for some of these characters. They show the adventures that they had in the worlds that they went to, and all of the Odd books continue the storyline that the first book had in present day at the school or around the events that are happening at the school. So this one is an Odd book, so it's following the characters in present day as they are. If I am not wrong, it introduces a new character named Ancy, who has a particular knack for finding lost things, which the girls at the school come to find also could mean doors, getting them back to the worlds that they wish to be in rather than this one, which can cause some problems, as one might assume, because most of the people there just want to go back to their world. They don't really want to be in our world. So I can see how introducing a character who might be able to help them all get back might cause some problems. Am I going to pick this up immediately? No, probably not, because I still have some of the middle books that I haven't read that I need to catch up on before I can start this one, but I have all the other ones, so I picked it up, and I do love this series, even if I haven't continued to read it consistently. The next book on this list also came out on January 9th, and that is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. This, if you didn't know, the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition has sprayed edges and really beautiful end papers. And when I saw this come into the store, I went, I'm gonna pick that up immediately. Little did I know that I also had it flagged on Edelweiss interested in reading book as well. This one is epic fantasy, which is not normally my jam. I usually like to do lighter fantasies and especially shorter fantasies. A lot of the books on this list you'll see are like quite thin. I think that's more to do with the fact that my attention span post-COVID is horrible, and if I can't read it in one sitting, there's like a really, really high chance that I DNF it, not because I'm not enjoying it, but because like my brain can't keep on the same thing for long periods of time, unless it's Stranger Things fanfiction, and then I can do that for like 2 years. But this author is Indian. I'm always interested in picking up fantasy books that use other cultures as a basis, especially when it is written by a person who's from that culture, so they can use their own cultural understanding and knowledge when they're talking about the world building there. If I'm not wrong, this has multiple POVs. The female protagonist or heroine is like a murderous pirate. There is a crippled former hero who's now having to do some political stuff back in the city because he can no longer do the hero work that he used to do. So on top of being an interesting fantasy world, it also has some cool characters that caught my eye, and come on, it's pretty. Don't you want a copy now that you've seen it? The next book on this list came out on the 16th, and I've actually already read it, and there's already a review up that you can go watch. That's going to be the next book in the Dark Olympus series, Midnight Ruin by Katie Robert. This is Neon Gods, which is the first book in that series, but Midnight Ruin came out. Normally I would already have a copy of this to show you, but I subscribe to Katie's Patreon, and she sends out signed copies to people who subscribe at a certain level. So I have not yet received my copy, at least at the time of filming this, but Midnight Ruin, it was great. Gretchen and I loved it. That one is returning to the lower city in the Olympus city structure, the upper city being where most of the gods live, and the lower city being where Hades lives. We get to see Orpheus and Eurydice, and I'm going to say Charon, even though I know it's Chiron. If you want to hear our full thoughts on that newest book, you can go watch that video. Gretchen reviewed Neon Gods on the channel, but we have reviewed every single one of those, and we will continue to review all of them as they come out. So I don't think I need to harp too much on that. We love the series. I obviously love Katie Robert as an author because I support her outside of just buying her books as well. So yeah, definitely one of the best series right now that are doing myth retellings, in my opinion, at least in the romance genre. The next book on this list, I don't actually have anything to hold up because I don't have anything by this author previously. It's rare for me to be anticipating a book that I haven't read something from that author previously, but you'll hear why when I talk about the book. This one caught my eye when I was going through Macmillan's list of books that were coming out in this first quarter. The book is titled Your Shadow Half Remains by Sunny Moraine. It is coming out on February 6th. It is a short standalone horror book that is queer. And there you go. Those are the buzzwords that I needed to go, yeah, sure, I'll pick that one up. The tagline that the publisher put on there was that it's like The Last of Us and Bird Box mixed together. It's a post-apocalyptic world where when people see each other's faces, it sends them into a blind rage where they will kill each other. The protagonist of this hasn't seen another human face in years, and then a person moves in down the block. She just needs some sort of human contact, as we do, so the two start talking to each other. They kind of start falling in love, and as would happen, that leads to wanting to see each other face to face. And again, it is a horror book, so I'm assuming this goes poorly for them, but who knows? Maybe the queer romance element of that will win out in the day. Won't know until I read it, but it's short, it's post-apocalyptic, it's queer, of course I wanted to look at it. The next book on this list is the second book in the Sworn Soldier series, What Feasts at Night. The first book in that series is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Gretchen and I both reviewed this one when it came out, and we both liked it. You can go see our thoughts on that there. This was a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher. The sequel is not a Poe retelling as far as I can tell. It was just that T. Kingfisher fell in love with Alex, the protagonist in this book, and wanted to write more of their stories. So at this point, the events of What Moves the Dead has happened. Alex is headed back home because this was traumatizing and weird. But as they get there, they hear from the locals that their house has actually been commandeered by like a local spook monster thing, and now they have to deal with that. So, from what I can tell, there is also a third book in the series that will hopefully be coming out eventually, but that one is also one that might come out. There is a chance that Gretchen and I review that together, although it is not currently downloadable from Edelweiss, so we may have to wait until after the book comes out. So it might not be a timely review of that one, but we both liked this one enough that it is likely that we will also review that one together. Also, on February 13th, I will most likely be picking up the sequel to The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older, which is The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles. I actually had this arc sent to my Barnes & Noble with my name on it, so I'm assuming somebody at Tor.com went, sapphic murder mystery set in space? This sounds like something that this person who has reviewed a couple of our shorter queer books might be interested in, and I have yet to read this first one. From my understanding, the first one is like a Holmesian mystery set on Saturn, where murder has happened and one character has to go and ask for the help of their former girlfriend, who is a scholar, to help them solve the murder mystery. I know I'm gonna love this. I'm planning to read both this and the second book next month, hopefully to do a review of both books for you when I have them both read. The second book is them getting back together to solve another mystery, I'm sure. So it depends on how much I enjoy this one, but I have a feeling that if I like this one, and I think I will, I'm going to be reading both of those next month and talking about them. The final book, also coming out on February 13th, that's 3 books coming out on February 13th that I'm interested in picking up, is The Book of Love by Kelly Link. If you didn't know, Kelly Link normally writes short story collections. This is her most recent one, White Cat, Black Dog, which came out last year, and I really enjoyed. Taylor also really enjoyed. If you aren't aware, Taylor is a big fan of Kelly Link and introduced both Gretchen and I to Kelly Link. You will see that there was a book club episode on Magic for Beginners, I believe, on the channel, as well as Gretchen did a review of Get in Trouble, I believe, for the channel. Taylor has agreed to review The Book of Love with me, and the both of us will hopefully have a review for you. I don't think that we're going to force Gretchen into that, just because she's not as big a fan of Kelly Link. Because Kelly Link normally does weird magical realism, surrealism type stuff, and Gretchen's not so big a fan on the, like, letting go of just weird things are happening and we're gonna ignore the fact that that's kind of breaking a lot of rules. This particular book, The Book of Love, follows the story of 3 teenagers who are resurrected by their former music teacher 1 year after they all died. And the former music teacher says, "You guys can go back to your lives and your families as long as you do some magical stuff for me." So that's interesting, and the fact that they're resurrected apparently gets some other magical creatures a little bit interested in what's going on in the town, and that's going to add some nuance, and I'm sure it will be funny and weird. Kelly Link always brings an interesting story, so if you haven't read any Kelly Link, I do recommend almost all of her short stories. I don't think I've disliked a single collection, and you might want to look forward to this debut novel. The next book on this list is actually a re-release of an old book that is going to be coming out on February 27th. That is the Book of Wherein, or Wherein, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but that's by Martha Wells. It is a bind-up of the first 2 books in the Wherein series, which originally came out in the 90s. I have read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I love this. This is obviously short science fiction, and this is going to be long-form epic fantasy, which I believe is the series that she kind of made a name for herself in the fantasy genre. I don't know very much at all about this series. I know that I love Martha Wells' writing. Her characters are snarky and interesting. These are updated, so I don't know if some things were changed to make it a bit better for modern sentimentality versus what it was like in the 90s, possibly. But I'm excited to read some of her fantasy because I haven't actually picked up any of her fantasy up until this point. I know that I like her writing, so why not pick up this? From what I understand, there's fae/fairy influences, there's political intrigue, and one guy who decides to fight a bunch of fairy magic with his sword. which is entertaining as a thought in itself. So yeah, I might pick that one up. It is over 700 pages. Am I gonna have that as like a timely review for you? No, probably not. But I'm definitely going to purchase it, and maybe I will get to it at some point this year if it makes sense for me. The next book on this list is coming out March 5th, and that is The Truth of the Aleke, which is the second book in the Forever Desert series. This is the first book, The Lives of the Ajinku by Moses Ose Utomi. This is a teeny tiny little thing, and that one is also quite small. This is the debut book by this author, and this will be the sequel follow-up to that one. The author is Nigerian American, so again, reading fantasy books that are written by a different culture with a different culture in mind from a different cultural background. This particular book follows a young boy who's trying to get water back to the city to save his mom. Quite short, that's all that I know about this. All that I know about the sequel is that it takes place 500 years after this book happens, so not following any of the characters here. I'm assuming the same city, and we get to sort of see what the events of this novel creates in the next one. I do know the next one involves cults and like a magical or at least culturally, religiously important object being stolen, and another young boy who's trying to save the fate of a city. So I'm going to pick this one up and most likely the second one. They're short, so I should be able to read them quite quickly. Again, I'm a big fan of Tor.com and how they're publishing a lot of diverse fantasy things that are coming out right now. The final book on this list is The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello, which, funnily enough, is another short book published by Tor. It's 160 pages. It's queer horror fantasy, which obviously is a thing that I'm interested in. If you're like, I've heard that name before. Lee Mandello wrote Summer Suns, which is quite popular because the cover is astonishing and wonderful. And this newer one is shorter than this one is. I have yet to pick up Summer Suns, but I know that I love a Southern Gothic, which this one is, and The Woods All Black will also be. Woods All Black is going to be following a trans main character who is a physician going back to like a backwoods town in Appalachia, where they will obviously be kind of a weird outlier in that it's probably quite religious, and trans isn't super loved over there, especially not in a historical book, which I believe is set in the 1920s. But in true Southern Gothic fashion, the woods hold more than just some churchy religious zealots. There's some ghosts maybe, some hauntings, some cryptids. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that I love the atmosphere that that is creating, and obviously trans representation, queer representation, gotta pick that up, gonna wanna read it. Those are 10 books that I will most likely purchase within the next couple of months. Some of them have plans to be read and reviewed. Not all of them. Some of them I just want to have to support the authors and to support the publishers who are doing the work that I think needs to be done to help create more diverse books in the world. And I would always like to support people who are creating interesting new ideas and helping to destigmatize certain things. I hope you guys are all having lovely weeks. I will see you again next week, I think with a wrap-up about the fan fiction that I've read in January, if everything is going to plan, because I haven't done any fan fiction stuff as of yet, and I think that I should try to do that. And I think that's the way that I'm going to do some fan fiction content, is to sort of wrap up my reading for the month, talk about some of my favorites that I read, and give some recommendations. If you're not interested in that, the following week I will most likely be talking about those series that I have been auto-buying, all of the new books in hardcover, despite having not read them for a couple of years. So if you want to see some of the series and authors that I support, even though I'm not always reading them as much, and sort of my plans for maybe fixing that, please stay tuned for that one. And obviously I'll be back with Gretchen for more Betwixt content somewhere in the middle there. I hope you have a very good week, and I will talk to you again soon.